I think it's time to watch those over 40 makeup tutorials because this isn't working anymore. Are you 40 something, even 30 something, even early 50s, and you feel like you're going through a midlife crisis, that you might be experiencing what some people call a midlife crisis? If this is you, in this video, we're gonna cover what a midlife crisis is, what God has to say about them, and how you should respond to them. My name is Olivia Kirchhoff. I am 41, and I believe that I may be going through a midlife crisis. So let's talk about what exactly that is, because I did a little bit of research and I found out the midlife crisis wasn't even a crisis or a thing until the early 20th century, because after World War I, they tried, I guess the government tried to invigorate man. And there was even this book by, I forget, his last name is Adams, that tried to feed them and seduce them basically into this idea of the American dream, so that this man would rise up and stimulate and invigorate the economy, therefore bringing the economy back after the war. And then that was World War I, and then World War II happened, and so all of that was dashed. But a remnant still remained, but the remnant was very just materialistic. It was motor cars and high wages, and it was this entitlement to happiness and material things, and that kind of created this social structure. And I want to share about what that social structure is, because it affects us today, because we're still living within that social construct. And if we do not hit those social markers, then we feel less than, then we feel depressed, and then it becomes a crisis. I want you to look at this list. I want you to look at these social expectations of every American citizen, I believe. We're expected to go to school, to go to college, to get a degree, to have a really great paying career, to buy a house, to buy maybe a couple of cars, because your wife probably works too, or your husband works, so you both need a car. Some toys, maybe a boat or an RV. You have a family, a beautiful wife, and a couple of awesome children. I put extracurricular because like you're involved in the city or the PTA or, you know, whatever, Bible study. And then you have money in your retirement so you can retire at a great age, at a good age, so you can enjoy your golden years in Leisure World and Seal Beach, California, or Florida, and you just, you know, wear Hawaiian shirts and drive a golf cart and sip on pina coladas all day. And you have a financial legacy to leave your children, so they have money and everything is peachy. Sounds great, right? Like that's everybody's dream. That is like perfect, ideal life. And that is the trap. And that is the reason why so many people, when they hit their late 30s, early 40s, even early 50s, where they start to realize something. So this is the great arc of life: when you're born, when you die. And somewhere around here is midlife. So let's say 40, 50, some people experience it earlier. This is the peak of life. And most of the time when we get here, we have a realization. We wake up to the fact that our best and strongest years are behind us. And the only thing that awaits us is deterioration and soon death. And if we do not have and experience all of these things before this peak, we are somehow some sort of failure, and we become depressed and find ourselves in a crisis. So that's when most people begin to panic and begin to displaying odd or bizarre or just different types of behavior. I feel like the stereotype for midlife crisis is a man will go out and buy a sports car, start dressing differently, start hitting the gym and working out, getting a different haircut, changing the way that they act. I feel like that's the typical. They say that women don't really hit their midlife crisis until either they become empty nesters or menopause hits or perimenopause. And I can see how that can be, because I feel like women, we play more roles, okay? Like we have more of a role in our children's life as mothers. I think it's a very deep role and a position and an identity that we play in life. And men, it's their strength. It is their ability to provide. It is their masculinity. It is just different. So I think it expresses itself in different ways, but it's still essentially the same thing happening. And these behaviors, this is what it says when I did my research here, okay? I did my research. In order to cover up the crisis, the manic behavior to prove or convince themselves of their youth and their potency begins to happen. Hyper concern with health and appearance are all attempts at a race against time. You feel like the good days are over, you have a little bit left, you're going to make it all that you can because you don't have much time left. The reality of death is closer than it has ever been before. They call this midlife the deadline decade because we see death accelerating toward us and we try to deny and cover up and pretend that we are younger, and that leads to all kinds of different and weird behaviors for some people. Trying to change key things, realizing that we haven't achieved the things that we wanted to do or society says that we should have done already. And so I want to show you another list that was pressed upon me as I was writing this list that I showed you. Are you ready? The first one was social expectations, and I want to show you another list. God's expectations. So what does God expect at the end of your life you should have achieved? Okay, I'm going to write it right here for you, and it's pretty simple. But it is profound. Obedience. At the end of your life, when you're standing face to face with him, he's going to expect nothing else but your obedience. It's the only way he's going to look at you and say, well done, good and faithful servant. You did everything that I told you to do, that I told you to do. Not what the world told you that you are supposed to do, but you did everything that I told you to do. Now, maybe some of those things are on this side of the list. Maybe he did tell you to start a family. He did tell you to go and be fruitful and multiply and have a family. Finances. Finances are really important to God. They really are, because it shows you where your heart is. It teaches you stewardship and prudence and diligence. Maybe he did give you a house and he's blessed you with a house. Maybe he has. Maybe he hasn't. It's all about obedience. Maybe he did tell you to go into a certain career. Maybe he did tell you to go to college. Maybe he didn't. The point is, these should not be weighing on our shoulders as if God told us to, this is the standard, because this is the world's standard. His is just obedience. And what has he told you to do? Maybe he told you to start a business. Maybe he told you to be mom, to stay home and be okay just being mom, because that is the biggest job responsibility that you will ever have in your life. Maybe everybody's different. Maybe he you don't feel like he's told you anything. He doesn't really have an assignment for you. You don't know what his assignment is for you. Ask him. Go sit at his feet and ask him. But I can tell you one thing for sure. He gives you a command, and he's giving you a command in the Bible and it's called the Great Commission. And it's to go and to make disciples of all nations. He told us to heal the sick, to preach repentance, to heal the sick, to cast out demons. He told us to do those things. If you don't know what else to do, if you haven't been given another assignment, go do that, because we're all called to do that. And maybe some people have different interpretations of that. I believe that if he's healed you and he has saved you, that you should go and tell others about it. That you should go and tell others about what he's done for you. And so that is just the small little shift. Maybe it's not small, maybe it's a big shift. It is a big shift to really understand that. And I'm talking to myself right now. I'm looking at myself, because I find myself, I woke up at 41 years old. I just had a birthday in July of 2024. And I woke up and I realized that my life is half over. And the things that I thought that I was going to achieve, and the things that as a young woman, I was like, oh, I know I'm going to do this. And right now I'm raising little kids, but I know that I'm going to do this. And I still haven't done it. And there are things that I thought I was going to do and I haven't done. And there are things that I knew God told me to do and I haven't done them yet. And I started working out, I started walking, I started vlogging, I started doing more social media. I started doing all of these behaviors because I wanted a difference. I wanted the last arc of my life to mean something. I wanted it to be worth something. I wanted to finish the things that he told me to do so he can look at me and say, you did it. Instead of, why didn't you do it? I told you to do it. Why didn't you trust me? Why did you doubt me? Why did you doubt that I was with you? Like, I don't want that. I do not want that. I want him to look at me and say, well done, good and faithful servant, for doing all the things, and all of the things that I've told you to do, you did them. And that's why I started making these changes in my life. But I'm so glad that today, doing this research, I realized the difference between the weight that the world puts on you and the light burden that God has, because it doesn't matter if I never have a boat. I probably never will have a boat or an RV, and that's okay. All I know is that I need to be obedient to what God is calling me to. And so that's what I want to leave you guys with. In conclusion, if you find yourself at middle age and you realize that you are closer to death than you've ever been, and everybody that's alive today is closer to death than they've ever been. I don't care if you're 16, I don't care if you're 5, I don't care if you're 55, I don't care what age you are. Today, we're one day closer to death than we've ever been. And tomorrow will be even closer. So time is ticking. What are you doing with your life? And whose expectations are you holding on your shoulders? What burden are you carrying? Who are you trying to please? Those are the questions I want you to think about, and I want you to really ponder and just take to prayer and ask God to cleanse and wipe away any expectations that you put on yourself or that society's put on you, to just take them away. And to really focus your sight and your attention on what he's called you to do. Your lane. Don't look over to hers or his, yours. I love you guys. I hope that encourages you today to start living. I'm going to leave you with that quote, the quote that we don't begin to live until we begin to die. When we begin to die, our eyes are open to how fast and fleeting this flesh suit is. It is fast. Don't waste it.